Hello viewers, welcome again to today's lesson. This is the Solution Space, the platform where mathematics is made easy and simple for everyone to understand and to enjoy. In this video, I want us to continue with the vectors that I started with you in the previous videos. In the previous videos, we started learning about vectors and we started with introduction to vectors. Then we moved on to addition and subtraction of vectors. And the last thing that we handled under the vectors is multiplication of a vector by a scalar. And I hope you understood it and you enjoyed the lesson as well. So in this video, I want us to proceed and handle another aspect of the vectors, which is position vectors. As you can see from the board, I've written position vectors on the board, okay? And actually, I have explained what position vectors are to you in the introduction to vectors, okay? I explained into detail what position vectors are. So we are going to apply that knowledge here to solve questions on the position vectors. So therefore, I will encourage you to do well to watch the previous videos that I've done on the vectors, okay, so that you can get a good foundation and understanding to be able to handle this session as well. And also, please don't forget to like the videos and also share them after watching. And if you are watching for the first time, please do well to follow the page and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at the question that I have on the board. Then I will do some further explanation, then we'll solve it together. Okay, so let's read the question together. So example 1, it says that find vector AB and hence vector BA if point A is given to be 4, 8 and point B is given to be -1, 5. Okay, so I'm going to read it one more time. So the question says that we should find vector AB and hence vector BA if A is given to be 4, 8 and B is given to be -1, 5. Okay, so the question is asking us to find the vector AB and hence we should proceed and find the vector BA as well, giving the point A to be 4, 8 and also the point B to be -1, 5. Okay, before we proceed, I have to just do a quick recap on what position vectors are for the sake of those who don't have any knowledge on what position vectors are, okay, so that you can easily understand what I'm about to teach you, okay, concerning solving the question that I have on the board, okay. And actually, as I said, I've already taught on position vectors. I've explained it into details in the previous videos, which is the introduction to vectors, okay. That's why I keep on encouraging you to do well to watch the previous videos, okay. So now, when we speak of position vectors, in simple terms, position vectors simply refers to vectors which starts from the origin, okay. So any vector which starts from the origin, we refer to it as position vectors. I hope the explanation is clear enough, okay. So now, when I have OA on the board, so the vector OA is a position vector. Why? Because it's a vector which is starting from the origin O. You can see that we are starting from O and we are moving to the point A. So OA is a position vector because it's starting from the origin O. I hope you understand. When I write OB on the board, OB is a position vector. Why? Because OB is starting from the origin O. Okay, the vector OB is starting from the origin, which is O. You can see we are moving from O to B. Okay, O here is the origin, so OB is a position vector. Again, if I have OC on the board, OC is also a position vector. Why? because we are starting from the origin O. So we are moving from O to C. So OC is a position vector. So again, position vector simply refers to a vector which starts from the origin. So that's a position vector. Okay, so let me clean this so that we can go ahead. Okay, so now looking at the question that you have been given, okay, you can see that we have been given point A and also point B. Now we can express the given point as position vectors, okay, and I'm going to show you. It's very simple. Okay, so again, if I have, let's say, the point D to be 1, 4, this point D, which is given to be 1, 4, I can express it as a position vector, okay, and I'm going to show you right now. It's very simple, so just follow the explanation. Okay, so now expressing the point D as a position vector. So as I've explained to you already, a position vector is a vector which starts from the origin. So expressing this point D as a position vector is going to be OD. Okay, you can see, so you bring the origin, then you bring your D. Okay, so that's you writing a point as a position vector. So OD will be equal to, then this given values, I'll write it in column form. So it's going to be 1, 4 like this. So this is me expressing the point D as a position vector. I hope the explanation is clear enough up to this point. Let me go ahead and use another example to explain it to you. So again, let's say I have the point P. Okay, so point P given to be -2, 5. So now this point P, I can express it as a position vector. Okay, so again, don't forget, position vector simply means that a vector which starts from the origin. So I'll write this point as a position vector. So I'm going to write my OP. Okay, you can see the O is here and the variable P is there. Okay, so that's me writing the point P as a position vector. So my OP will be equal to, then I'll bring my -2, 5. Okay, so the point P, I've written it as a position vector. Okay, I hope the explanation is clear enough up to this point. So we are going to apply this knowledge to handle the question that I have on the board. Okay, so let me clean this from here so that we can proceed, okay, with our solution. So let me write down my solution and let's begin to solve together. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to write down the points given in the question. I'm going to write them down and I'm going to express each of the points given as a position vector. That's the first thing that you are going to do. Okay, so now we're given the point A. Okay, so point A is given to be 4, 8, which I can express it as a position vector. Okay, so this point A, expressing it as position vector, is going to be my OA equals to 4, 8. Okay, so this is how we go about it, and I hope you understand up to this point. Let me take the point B also. We have point B. Our point B is given to be -1, 5. Okay, which I can also express it as a position vector. So we are going to do exactly the same thing. Okay, so expressing this as position vector, it's going to be my OB equals to -1, 5 like this. Okay, so that's it about you expressing a point as a position vector, and I hope the explanation is clear enough up to this point. Now let's proceed and look at what the question is asking us to do. The question says we should find AB and hence BA. Okay, so we are going to find AB first, the vector AB first. Then afterwards we proceed and find the vector BA as well. Okay, so when I take my AB, okay, that's what the question is asking me to find. Okay, so my AB, there's a rule that governs how we find vectors like this. Okay, and I'm going to show you. It's very simple. Okay, so now the rule says that, let me use other examples to explain it before we come to this one. Okay, assuming I have, let's say I have OP equals to 1, 2, and let's say I have OR equals to 3, 4. Okay, again, I'm just using this one to explain it to you, then we'll go back to what the question is asking us to do. Okay, so I have the vector OP equals to 1, 2, and the vector OR equals to 3, 4. Assuming we are being asked to find the vector PR, and I'm saying that there's a rule that governs how we find this vector, and I'm going to show you. It's very simple, so just follow the explanation and you understand. Okay, so now the rule says that for us to find the vector PR, it is always the position vector of the last letter minus the position vector of the first letter. I hope we are clear enough up to this point. Okay, it's not difficult, just follow. I'm going to repeat it one more time. So we are finding the vector PR here, okay, and I'm saying that the rule that governs it says that for us to find the vector PR, it is always the position vector of the last letter, which is the R, minus the position vector of the first letter, which is the P. So if I'm to find the vector PR, it's going to be the position vector of the last letter, which is going to be OR. So I've just explained position vectors to you. Okay, so OR minus the position vector of the first letter, which is OP. I hope you understand up to this point. So from here, I can just input my values and solve for the vector PR. So to get my PR, I'll input the values given. We are giving OR to be 3, 4. Let me write my 3, 4 minus the OP is given to be 1, 2. I hope you are clear up to this point. So let's go ahead and simplify for that. So my vector PR will be equal to this. We just apply the knowledge that we've had on addition and subtraction of vectors. That's what you are applying here to simplify this one. So 3 minus 1 is going to give you 2, and 4 minus 2 is also going to give you 2. So this is your answer for finding the vector PR. I hope the explanation is clear enough up to this point. Let me use one more example to explain it before we handle the question that I have on the board. Okay, so I'm going to clean this from here. Okay, so let me clean this and let me take one more example. Okay, now again, assuming I have the vector T, okay, let's say OT. OT is given to be -3, 2. And let's say I have OS, vector OS equals to be 4, 4. Okay, so this is also just an example to explain it to you. Okay, and let's say I'm being asked to find the vector ST. Okay, so for you to find the vector ST, I'm saying that the rule that governs it says that it is always the position vector of the last letter minus the position vector of the first letter. Okay, again, to get my vector ST, it is the position vector of the last letter, which will be OT. Okay, so the position vector of this last letter, the T, is going to be OT. So it's going to be OT minus the position vector of the first letter, the S. Okay, it's going to be OS. I hope you understand. Then we just input our values. So to get my ST, vector ST is going to be, the OT has been given to be -3, 2 minus the OS, which has been given to be 4, 4. Okay, then we just simplify. So my vector ST is going to be -3 minus 4 is going to be -7, and 2 minus 4 is going to be -2. So this is my answer for finding the vector ST. I hope you understand up to this point. Okay, so now with this understanding, let's proceed and solve the question that we have on the board. Okay, so let me clean this from here so that we can have enough space to continue. Okay, so now coming back to the AB, to get my AB, it's going to be the position vector of the last letter, okay, which is the B here. So it's going to be OB minus the position vector of the first letter, which is the A here. So it's going to be OA. And I hope you understand. So now we just input our values. Okay, so my vector AB will be equal to, OB has been given. Okay, we have OB to be -1, 5 minus the OA. OA has been given to be 4, 8. So 4, 8. Then we simplify to get our answer. So my vector AB will be equal to -1 minus 4 is going to give -5. And 5 minus 8 is going to give us -3. Okay, so this is your final answer for finding the vector AB. Okay, and I hope the explanation is clear enough up to this point. Okay, so now the next part of the question is saying that, and hence we should find the vector BA. Now we found the vector AB, okay, which is the first part of the question. The second part of the question is saying that we should find the vector BA. Okay, and now we can go through the same process and we'll get the vector BA that we are being asked to find. Okay, the same approach you used to get the AB. If you go through the same process, you can get the value of the vector BA as well. But I want to teach you something, okay, and that's why I'm bringing this one in. Okay, so actually I'm going to use the two approach, okay, so that you can understand it better. Okay, I want to teach you something which is called the inverse of a vector. Okay, the inverse of a vector simply means that the opposite of the vector. So again, if I have, let's say, CD, the vector CD, and I ask for the inverse of the vector CD, it simply means the opposite of the vector CD, and which is going to be DC. Please, I hope you understand up to this point. Now, all that I'm doing is to teach you something we call the inverse of a vector, okay? And the inverse of a vector simply means that the opposite of that vector. So when I have, for example, if I have a vector CD and I ask for the inverse of this vector CD, the inverse is going to be DC. Okay, again, so you can see we are moving from C to D. Then the inverse is going to be that you are moving from D to C. Okay, that's it about inverse of a vector. Okay, so now again, if I have vector PR and I ask for the inverse of the vector PR, the inverse is going to be RP. Okay, the inverse is just the opposite of the vector. So the inverse of this vector PR is going to be RP. I hope you understand up to this point. So now you can see from the question that we have AB, we found AB. AB we found here to be -5 -3. And the question is now asking us to hence find BA. You can see that BA is just the inverse of the vector AB. I hope you can agree with me on that. Okay, now we found for the vector AB, which we have -5 -3. Okay, now the next part of the question is asking us to find the vector BA, and BA is just the inverse of the vector AB. I just explained to you that the inverse of a vector simply refers to the opposite of the vector. So having AB, the inverse is going to be BA. So from the question, we know that the question is just asking us to find the inverse of the vector AB. I hope the explanation is clear enough up to this point. So now, I'm going to teach you how to find the inverse of a vector. Okay, so now, for you to get the inverse of any vector, all that you need to do is to negate that vector. Okay, again, for you to get the inverse of any vector, all that you need to do is just to negate that given vector. So if I have, let's say I have vector PR equals to -1, 2, and I'm being asked to find the inverse of this vector PR. Again, the inverse simply means what? The opposite of this vector. So the inverse of this vector PR is going to be RP. Okay, and I'm showing you how to find the inverse, which is the RP, and I'm saying that the inverse of any vector is simply the negation of that vector. So it means that when we negate the vector PR, then we are going to get the RP, which is the inverse of the PR. I hope the explanation is clear enough. Okay, I want to repeat it one more time. All that I'm saying is that the inverse of a vector simply means that the opposite of that vector. So having the vector PR, the inverse of the vector PR is going to be RP. And how do we get that RP? And that's what I'm showing you. So for you to get RP, you just need to negate the PR. So the inverse of any vector is simply the negation of that vector. Okay, so having PR equals to -1, 2, for me to get the inverse, which is the RP, all that I need to do is to negate the PR. Okay, so my RP will be equal to the negation of the vector PR. I hope you understand. So now let me put my values. So I'll have my RP will be equal to, I'll bring my negative sign, then I'll put the value of the PR there. The value of the PR is -1, 2. Okay, then I just need to simplify further to get my vector RP. Okay, so how do we simplify this one? The negative sign will affect the number at the top, and also the negative sign will affect the number at the down. Okay, so it's just like the negative will multiply the number at the down, and the negative will multiply the will multiply the number at the top and also multiply the number at the down. Okay, so we are going to have negative times -1 is going to give me +1, and negative times +2 is going to give me -2. Okay, so this is the answer, okay, for finding the inverse of the vector PR. The inverse is 1 - 2. That is, we negating the PR, then we got the inverse to be 1 - 2. Okay, the inverse is RP. I hope the explanation is clear enough up to this point. So with this understanding, we are going to use the same process to find the vector BA. Okay, let me do one more example before we go ahead and find the vector BA. Okay, so let me clean this from here, and let me do one more example before we go ahead. Assuming I have, let's say, vector DC equals to 3 - 2. Okay, now if you are being asked to find the inverse of the vector DC, the inverse of the vector DC would be CD. How do we get the CD? We just need to negate the vector DC and we'll get the CD. Okay, so to get my CD, which is the inverse of the vector DC, is going to be the negation of the vector DC. Okay, then I'll just input my values. So my CD will be equal to, you bring your negative sign, then you put the value of DC there. DC is given to be 3 - 2. Then you simplify. So my vector CD will be equal to minus times this +3 is going to give me -3, and the minus times this -2 is going to give me the minus times this +3 is going to give me -3, okay, and the minus times this -2 is going to give me +2. Okay, so that's it. So the negative will affect the value at the top, and also the negative will affect the value at the down. Okay, so you are getting your CD to be equal to -3, 2. Okay, and CD is simply the inverse of the vector DC. I hope the explanation is clear enough up to this point. So with this understanding, let's go ahead and find the vector BA. Okay, now take note that we've already found the vector AB, which is -5 - 3. So for me to get my vector BA, So my vector BA will be equal to the negation of the vector AB. I hope you agree with me. I have explained to you that BA is just the inverse of the vector AB, meaning that when we negate the vector AB, we will get BA. So my BA will be equal to the negation of the vector AB. Okay, so let's go ahead and just input our value. So my BA will be equal to, you bring your negative sign, then the value of the vector AB is -5 minus 3. So -5 minus 3. Okay, then we go ahead and simplify further. So my vector BA will be equal to, the negative will affect the number at the top here, and the negative will affect the number at the down here. So negative times -5, it will give me +5, and negative times -3, it will give me +3. So this is my answer for finding the vector BA. Okay, and that is the inverse of a vector. I hope the explanation was clear enough and you understood it as well. Now, if you go through the approach that we used to find the AB here, you get the same answer. Okay, so someone can choose, so or, then write or. So now, if I want to go by this approach, my BA will be equal to, as I explained to you, to get BA, it is simply the position vector of the last letter minus the position vector of the first letter. So the position vector of the last letter is OA minus the position vector of the first letter is OB. Okay, then you input your values and you solve for BA, and you are going to get the same answer. Okay, so if you go by this approach, you get the same answer, but I just wanted you to know about the inverse of a vector. Okay, that's why I taught you this one. Okay, that notwithstanding, this approach also holds and you get the same answer. So you can just try it and see. You end up getting the 5, 3. Okay, I hope you understood it and you enjoyed the lesson as well. Please don't forget to like the video and also share them after watching. And if you're watching for the first time, please do well to follow the page and also subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. I'll see you again in another video whilst we solve more questions on this. Bye bye.